Hi everyone, and welcome to our hashtag Female Boss mini YouTube series. Today we have the lovely Helena Murphy, who is the founder and managing director of Raising Partners. She is an amazing female boss, which is why we've got her here today. And she's an entrepreneur who has been incredibly successful as well. So her business has actually helped over 150 business startups raise over £40 million investment to date. So what an introduction, my goodness. Welcome, Helena. Thank you so much for joining
Thank you
us.
so much for having me.
Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and even a little bit about how you started up in business?
Sure, of course. Well, it's wonderful to be here. As you were saying, my name is Helena. I am the managing partner of Raising Partners, and I started my first business. I call it a business, but it wasn't really. It was kind of a side hustle business when I was 16. I was selling clothes on eBay. It was paying for me to go on great teenage under 18 nightclub nights out and buy all the really important things that you want when you're 16, like GHD straighteners. And yeah, I kind of got the entrepreneurial bug really, really early because I knew that if I wanted to have anything when I was younger, I had to make my own money to buy it. My parents weren't particularly well off, so they were always instilled me with a work ethic of if you want something, you've got to go out and make the money to have it. So I started selling clothes on eBay when I was 16. I would just go to high street retail stores and buy whatever I could from H&M and Topshop when it was open on Buchanan Street, and I would sell them for double or triple the price to people in the US and in Asia, because at that time, in the kind of early 2000s, there wasn't international shipping. So I was like, great, I can export British produce via eBay abroad. So that's what I did. And I did that all throughout university. And when I graduated, I was in a position where I was like, well, graduate jobs weren't paying particularly well. I was making decent money off eBay. I'd done an undergraduate degree in sustainable development. And I thought, how difficult can it be to start your own business? I'll just kind of jump straight in and do that instead of getting a grad job. So I built my own website. I started selling sustainable brands online. And still by this point, we're in kind of the 2010s. So people making decisions on a consumer level on sustainability wasn't really a thing. It wasn't really a factor that people were taking into consideration when they were purchasing something. But nevertheless, I had some initial early success. I was part of an accelerator program. I was very fortunate with sales to begin with. I think I had quite a lot of beginner's luck. I had a decent amount of press coverage. So, these things were all great. And the icing on the cake was that I went to a business dinner. I sat next to someone. They asked me what I did. And within a week, I had 100 grand. And it was at the time of investment. And at the time, I was like, oh, this is great. This is how you raise money to finance growth of a business. Like, you meet a rich person gives you money, and then it's all great. And 100 grand when you're 22 feels like a lot of money, but in practical terms, when you run a business, it's really not a lot at all. And I burnt through that cash super quickly. I made every mistake going. I focused completely on vanity metrics. I was like, oh, I'm in all these newspapers and I've got all of this marketing, and that's great, but it wasn't actually converting into the fundamentals of my business, which was, sales and being frank, kind of bottom line profit and growing a really sustainable business, as opposed to just focusing on all of the stuff that sounded really good but wasn't really having an impact on the growth of my company. And then I needed to raise money again. I was in e-commerce. I was buying products way in advance of when I was able to sell them. So I had a lot of my cash tied up in stock, and I needed to raise about £1 million. So I went back to my investors and said, I need £1 million. Last time you gave me 100 grand in a week. So I've left 8 weeks. That feels like reasonable enough. And I went to them and they were like, you're absolutely crazy. Like, we do not have £1 million. And that is, no, I had no grip on the numbers at all. And I think I told myself this story, and I think it's a story lots of people tell themselves, that I'm not good with money and I hate Excel and I'm not good at spreadsheets and I'm not an accountant. So I was just totally in denial about the money side of my business. Sorry, that's my dog in the background. I was so in denial about it, how money worked in my company, that I just was incredibly naive when it came to raising that next round of investment. They were like, no, you need a proper financial model. I'd never heard that word before in my life. I had no idea what a financial model was. You know, you need a proper pitch deck. You need to find some other investors. Like, there's not many of them in Scotland. You're probably going to have to go to London. So I was like, okay, fine. Went to London. I was Googling how to raise investment, which still I think a lot of people do now. And I just went to London and I met with literally any investor that would talk to me. And I had no strategy. I had no game plan. I was like, just complete spray and pray. Like, this, someone will give me money. I spent about 8 or 9 days doing that. And I was like, literally no one's going to give me money. I'm having all these meetings, but actually when I talked to them, they all invest at a much later stage. They're all just here to have an interesting conversation. Like, none of these people are intending to give me any cash. And they're definitely not intending to give me any cash in this time frame. So I got to a point where I had a kind of fork in the road, and I could decide I could spend another 6 weeks really trying to raise this money, that every day it was becoming more and more apparent that I was delusional if I thought I was going to be able to achieve that goal. It was not a case of, oh, maybe I'll be the 1 in a million chance. It was never ever going to happen. And that's not being not optimistic. It was just being extremely realistic about the situation that I was in. So I decided that I could either try and raise that money, or I could close down my business with kind of my ego severely bruised and my dignity kind of reasonably intact, in the sense that I wouldn't get into any trouble. I could take this as a learning. I could pay off all of my staff and my suppliers I committed to pay with the money I had in the business. So that's what I chose to do. And I took out £100,000 of personal debt, which I put on a credit card because I knew absolutely nothing about borrowing money. And I paid back my original investors. And then, just to top it all off, I lost my hair from stress-related alopecia, because just the complete stress of everything that had happened, and I wasn't really talking to anyone. And because I'd had all of this press coverage, that everyone thought I was doing so great, and I was the person out of all my friends that didn't get a regular job, that I had my own business, and I'd been in the a lot of people knew me for that, and that was extremely painful to admit to everyone that I wasn't all that, and I didn't have anywhere near everything figured out, and it had actually all gone wrong. And that was what happened in my first business. And I will take a pause at that point, because I'm sure you've got other questions about then how that relates to the company that I've got today. But that was how I started out in business, and I have actually been in business ever since then. But yeah, that was my first entrepreneurial business running experience.
Well, I mean, as you've said, a lot of the students that we work with are just at a very start-up stage. They've got an idea, they're not quite sure where to go. And through hashtag Female Boss, we will be supporting them. We'll be teaching them about finances. We'll be teaching them about marketing and budgeting and all of these things that you're talking about. But starting off a business is really tricky, and there are a lot of mistakes that you're going to make. So before I kind of go on to my next question, because it does relate to your current business, it would be quite good to hear what it is that you're doing now.
Sure. So I closed my last business down, and I spent about 18 months kind of licking my wounds, and I spoke to everyone I could about what had gone wrong in that business. So I spoke to accountants, I spoke to solicitors, I spoke to investors, and I was like, what did I do wrong? Like, show me what I could have done to make this business better, because it was almost like it was a grieving process that I needed to go through, because it had had such a massive impact on my life. And through that process, I learned so much about actually what would have improved my positioning, particularly from a financing, because it all went wrong because I didn't manage the money. And I actually spoke to some investors, and they were like, you were really good at this, but you just didn't know what you didn't know. And we think, you could run a business again, but it'll be in something else. And then what I actually did was I went to work for a couple of people in-house and help them raise investment. And on the side, I was always having conversations with people about what had happened to me. And I had friends that were also running businesses. As I said, I was part of an accelerator program. And I was like, guys, everyone kind of looking left and right and being like, none of us are thinking about raising money. And like, look at what just happened to me. Because I didn't raise money effectively, I lost everything. And I had two sides where I built up a very organic network, one on founders and one on the investor side. And it was actually, I think it might have been 3 or 4 years. I need to actually look at the dates of how long this took, but I think for about 3 or 4 years, all I was doing was connecting people, and I wasn't charging them anything. And I was making some money from working in house with people specifically on their fundraisers. And it was only at the point where I'd had a coffee with someone, and we'd had a number of meetings, and I'd introduced her to enough investors that she had 1.5 million pounds in investment. And we'd done it all just me having coffee and lunch with her and being like, oh, you should speak to this person, you should speak to this person. I was living in London at this point. And then I came home to my then boyfriend and now husband and was like, oh, isn't it great? I helped so like get all and he was like, and you've not charged them anything, but this is all your network and you've done all this work. He was like, that's a business. I was like, no, it's not. I'm just talking about like what happened to me. And I want to help her like not make the same mistakes as I did. So I've just connected her with a bunch of people. And he was like, but she's made £1.5 million and you didn't get paid anything. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, maybe this is a business. And that was the start of Raising Partners. And I grew very slowly and organically. I still stayed effectively freelance for about a year in that vein, where I was just helping people. I was being referred to more and more founders as more and more people, as I helped more and more people raise money. They were saying, oh, well, like, how did you raise investment? They would say, oh, I know this, but you should connect with this person. She really helped me. She introduced me to investors and did my investor deck and that kind of thing. And really, I was providing them with bandwidth to be able to fundraise at the same time. And that has organically grown into the company that we now have today in Raising Partners. And there's a few different elements to our business. The foundation is in educating people on what it means to raise money at an early stage. And we do that through our website Runway. It's completely free to access content. It's a download of myself and my team's brains. There's 7 of us now in our team on everything to do with early stage financing. What I wish had come up for me in Google when I was frantically Googling on the train on the way to London, how do I raise investment? I wish I had found, here's my dog. I wish I had found our website. So that's what we built. We have an element of client services in our business where we work directly with businesses to do everything from financial modeling through to pitch decks, through to introducing them to investors. And in that regard, we do about 15 deals in a year, averaging at £1 million each. And that is a very intensive hands-on part of our business. And we're currently looking for ways that we might be able to scale that to make it more accessible to people, but also so that we can help more people, because it is very labor intensive work to do to fundraise for someone. And then we have an angel syndicate. That's the formalization of our angel connections that myself and my team have built up over the last kind of 7 or 8 years, all in an angel syndicate. We make investments in businesses making a significant impact on people, processes, and the planet. And now we're looking at how we expand that out into a direct seed fund. So lots of things going on at Raising Partners. And I think one of the things I love the most about what we do now is after COVID. Previously, I had been living in London. During COVID, I moved back to Scotland, which is great. And now half of my team is in Glasgow, which is obviously where I'm from. So it's so nice to be doing this kind of thing and to be doing it here, because I don't think there is a huge amount of investment actually happening in activity directly in Scotland. Lots of it is coming up from the south, and I think the more support, hands-on support we can be giving people in Scotland and people who are investors having offices here, the better. So yeah, that's what we do now.
Definitely. That's so exciting. I love it. And it really links well with what we are talking to our hashtag female bossers about.
Yeah.
So as I said, loads of them are at the very, very start of their process. They might have an idea, it might not have come to any fruition yet. They might have that side hustle on the go. Um, but one of the things that we come across when we are speaking to the students that we interact with, a biggest kind of problem that they come across is funding. So, what would you say are the first steps you would recommend to someone who is at that early stage? They don't really know where to start, and funding is an issue for them.
Okay. This might sound a bit illogical when I say this, but I would always think about when you approach funding in your business and you've got no, if you're sitting there and you're like, I've got no money right now and I don't know anyone, right? Which was the position that I was in. And I think is actually the position that 99% of people are in when they start a business, because most people are not from incredibly wealthy backgrounds with loads of connections where their parents can introduce them to someone with loads of cash. So I take a lot of comfort in the fact that you're actually in the majority. If you're sitting in that position, you're not in the minority. But what I would do is sit down and think about what you want from your business in the end. How big is this company for you, and what do you want it to do for you and your life? Do you want it to fund, a really nice life for you and your family? Do you want to go on, do you want to go on nice holidays every year and drive a nice car and buy nice things and make an impact and give money to charity and have a really nice life that you're in control of? And by that, I mean where you are personally making a lot of money for yourself, that's sustained over, essentially, you're building your own career for yourself where you're making a nice lifestyle income? Or do you want to build something that you can sell, that you are going to work probably for not a lot of money for the next 10 years, and one day you're going to sell it to someone else? And how you finance those two scenarios of business is really different. And I didn't get that at all at the start. So I say, think about what you really want and then fund a business, getting any money into your company based on either one of those scenarios. And neither one is right or wrong. I think a lot of people instantly think that you make a bit of an assumption that, to grow a big business, I need to raise money from investors, which that might not actually be the best path for you. Some of the best businesses that are recognizable brands that we have in the UK, sorry, my dog would like to be outside now, were completely, they didn't ever take on any external investment. They may have taken some money on later on down the line, but at the start, they didn't start out with any external funding in them. The White Company is one that comes to mind straight away, Joe Malone. The start of those companies, they didn't have any external investment in them, which I think lots of people would think, they must have loads of investors, la, la,
Yeah.
la. But they actually didn't. They grew very slowly and organically over a long period of time, and now they're worth hundreds of millions of pounds. Brand Joe Malone exited to Estee Lauder in the early 1990s. White Company is still owned by Chrissy Rucker, and she's not got external shareholders in that business. She's financed it entirely through venture debt. So it's not always a default position to think I'm going to raise money from investors, because once you've taken money on from an investor like me, for example, if I give you 100 grand, I'm going to be like, right, Morven, you are off to the races now for the next 10 years, and I'm going to invest more money and more money and more money to grow the value of your business, where you can sell that company for 10 times what I put in it.
Mm-hmm.
I want a 10 times return back on my money, and that is not right for everyone. So I would work out what you want in the end. Do you want to exit for hundreds of millions of pounds and work for very little money for 10 years to get there, but then be incredibly wealthy at the other side? Or do you want to grow something that's more slow and organic, and you could still get to that end point where you exit, but it's taking you your whole career to get there, 20, 25, 35 years? Or you're like, you know what, I want to run a business where I've got a really nice life and I call the shots, I'm my own boss, I can make a really decent income and salary. To start with, you're always going to be paid absolute peanuts, but I can, you can see a path to making a really decent income for yourself, and that's what you want for you in your life. And equally, some of the best founders I know have those kind of businesses. And I sometimes look at them and I'm like, why did I ever decide that investing was a good idea? Because it's very stressful. But they've grown, they've grown companies over 10 years that now they get paid multi-millions a year, and they're often very, very simple businesses that make the best kind of quote unquote lifestyle businesses. And that's not to say that they're just, lifestyle, not to be taken seriously kind of businesses, but they make a lot of money. So that's the first thing I would do. And then when you decide whichever one of those paths that you are on, I would try and find someone and speak to someone who's been on that path and see how they finance things. The Prince's Trust is an incredible source of early stage capital and advice of pointing you in the right direction of money. I would speak to them. I would try and speak to someone who's done it before you in that vein. If you're thinking, I want to raise investment because I've developed an app, or I've got and I need a lot of money, then come and speak to us. Go on our website, go on Runway, read everything that we've got there. It's completely free to access. Book into one of our office hours, and someone from my team will talk to you about whether or not your company is investable, what you can do about it, what the next best steps to take. But I would look at what you want and then think about how you finance it from there. And I would also learn to love spreadsheets, because the spreadsheets will tell you what to do.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So just kind of coming to the end to our last question, you've already given some really fantastic advice, particularly around the funding side of things. You've shared that you yourself made lots of mistakes. You have been through the ringer, so to speak, on multiple occasions. So just to kind of finish us off, what other maybe hints or tips would you offer to our students that are thinking about starting their own business, but they're not quite ready to take that step, that they're thinking about it, but we're wanting to help push them into starting it up?
Okay, I would say definitely do it. Like, definitely do it. If you've got an idea for a business, like, the worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work out and you get a job, right? You will be able to get a job doing something. There will be something that pays you money. You might even start your business and still work at the same time. I did that when I was running my business at university. I had a job in a bar. I mean, I don't know how I actually managed to get a degree, because I ran a business and I worked in a bar 30 hours a week and I went to uni at the same time. So I would say try and, I definitely just take the plunge. You won't regret it. You will learn more running a business than you will doing anything else, than you would in any kind of degree subject, than you would working for anyone else. So if you have an idea and you think this sounds like, fun, I would highly recommend it. I would say try and surround yourself with people who've got a similar mindset to you. It's so difficult. The odds are so stacked against you that you need to be surrounded by people who are like, you can absolutely do it. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. And I can't remember who said this, but it is quite a popular thing online that people see, that you're the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with the most. So spending time with other entrepreneurs is really helpful, with other young people who are thinking of starting a business, and trying to make yourself some friends who are in a similar situation. I have someone that I call her at least 2 or 3 times a week, but she just totally gets it in terms of what the trials and tribulations are like, how stressful it can be. And we just completely offload on one another, that she understands that in a way that you can't do with maybe your friends from school or people who are not in a similar situation. You need to find someone else who absolutely gets it. And they don't need to be doing anything in a business sense that's similar to you, but they do need to be actually running a business. I'd probably actually spend a lot of time on the internet. I would spend a lot of time Googling, but the amount of stuff that you can find out from YouTube is incredible. And other online networks, the kind of thing that you guys are doing is so important and so powerful. Like, try and plug your knowledge gaps wherever you can. And I would just hold so clearly in your mind what the end goal and vision is like for you on a personal level, because that's what will keep you going. Not about your vision for the business, your vision for you and your life. And be so clear on that, because if you're not clear on where you're personally going, it's so difficult to run a business. Curveballs are coming at you from left, right, and center all the time. It's completely relentless. Don't worry, there are really good bits to it as well, but it is relentless. So that's why you need something to focus on. It was like, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. That's the life that I want. This is it's worth it. I will get there. I will get there. And that's how you stay in business for 10 to 15, 20, 25 years. You know, the people who make it in business are the people that hold on when everyone else is letting go. So set yourself up for that. But you can absolutely, I mean, if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Helena. It has been an absolute pleasure talking with you, and I have to say that I have learned things, so hopefully our students watching along at home have also gotten so much from this interview. Thanks for sharing your journey and inspiring and empowering us, and I know that everybody who is watching this will get so much from this discussion. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, anytime. And
right.
You never know, we might be sending some of our students your way in the future.
Oh, that would be great. Okay, perfect. Thanks so much.
No problem. This has been our #FemaleBoss YouTube series, and we shall see you next week.